Hey everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day, and today I'm going to be reviewing The House of Hades by Riordan. The House of Hades, the book I've been waiting for what's felt like 70 years. I've come to the conclusion that Riordan can do no wrong. Honestly, this book is practically flawless. Everything from here on out will be dripping in spoilers, so please, if you haven't read this book yet, exit out immediately. I was spoiled involuntarily when I was on Tumblr one day, and it basically ruined my life. I do not wish that upon any of you guys, so please, if you haven't read it, and then come back. If you haven't figured it out by now from watching my previous reviews, I am a huge character person. Well-developed characters are basically the reason why I live. So I'm going to be talking about the characters first. Cassidy Tucker said, and nothing has ever been truer, but Riordan is so good at keeping old characters interesting. The further we go in this series, the more layers are revealed from each character, and the development of each character in the House of Hades alone is outstanding. I think having the chapters in each of the 7's point of views was a really genius idea. It just made the whole group feel that much more cohesive. But first, let me talk about Percy. It is no secret that I am in love with and obsessed with Percy Jackson, and after House of Hades, I love him even more. There's just so much development in his character. His relationship with Annabeth is so strong. He has such a heavy conscience. His self-doubt and his whole "what makes us the good guys" thought process was so believable and breathtakingly realistic. The depth in his character alone is incredible. His thoughts on his previous actions, all the monsters that he's killed, all of that just added to the intensity of his character. The Percy scene that struck me the most was probably in Tartarus with those old hags and their curses, because each of those curses was from someone that Percy had wronged, and there were so many of them, and that number just really put things into perspective. The intensity of that scene was so mind-blowing. Also, Percy has gotten a lot darker. The scene where he's attacking Misery and controlling all the poison, even scaring Annabeth, who's his own girlfriend, just wow. So intense, so amazing, and actually I really liked it because it's really realistic. You can't suffer through all that Percy has suffered, even going to Tartarus, without changing. You can't still be the same happy-go-lucky guy you were in the beginning. And what Percy has realized is that he has kept on fighting monsters over and over again for years and years. And after all these monsters that he's killed, after all these trials that he's faced, he's realized that it's not stopping. It happens over and over again. These monsters are eternal. Demigods and heroes, they die, but monsters regenerate over and over again. And it almost seems kind of hopeless. And that thought just temporarily depresses Percy. Congratulations to Riordan for darkening Percy appropriately. And it's bad that I find it kind of hot. Annabeth didn't shine as much in this novel, but that's because I'm comparing it to Mark of Athena, and Mark of Athena was basically her book. Annabeth is still as intelligent and cunning as ever. She knows how to manipulate people so well. What really saddened me in this book, I guess, is that Annabeth never retrieved her knife. Annabeth's knife is such a sentimental and symbolic weapon, especially because it's kind of like the last physical piece of Luke that she has, and that's even more emphasized by the scene where Annabeth feels that guilt of Luke's death, like it's her fault. I just feel like losing that one last piece of Luke was so depressing, and I wish Annabeth got her knife back. On a somewhat happier note, we find out Annabeth's birthday, July 12th. Awesome! The Persebeth in this book wasn't as sizzling as in Mark of Athena, I think, which is kind of hard to explain because they like kiss a lot and they hold hands and they do lots of lovey-dovey things, but I feel like the intensity and like the simmer level was turned down a couple of notches because there wasn't that urgency from a big separation anymore. They're finally together, they're reunited, and they're strong. Nevertheless, I thought their relationship was so cute and they're so devoted to one another. And I love how both of them like to focus on their future together, like it's their one hope, it's their one goal. That is so cute, and it shows so much maturity in their characters. Also, they both talk about children. Wow. What kind of bothered me was that Annabeth told Percy that she loved him a couple of times, and Percy never said it back, so I hope that when he finally does, it'll be some really huge firework romantic moment because I'm waiting. My favorite Annabeth scene was probably in front of the doors of death when she tells Bob the Titan, "We will remember you and Jameson as heroes, as the best Titan and the best giant. We'll tell our children. We'll keep the story alive." It touched me so hard, and I'm trying hard not to cry now. It's just so touching, and I don't know if Annabeth has ever said anything as great as that. Speaking of Bob the Titan, Bob was just so amazing. I loved him, and I loved how genuine he was, and I liked what he pulled out of Percy's character. Tartarus itself was really cool. All the scenes there were awesome, but let's move to above ground. I'll start with Hazel. Hazel has developed so much. She's discovered this power over the mist, and she knows how to use it and manipulate it, and wow, she's just grown so much. She really stood out in this book. I felt like her last battle with Pasiphae was kind of anticlimactic, but nevertheless, it was a great scene, and Hazel knows how to whoop butt. Frank was actually my least favorite of the 7 before House of Hades, but I quickly changed my mind in this book. He is such a warrior. That scene in Venice with those poisonous cows, and later in the House of Hades when he was taking control of that legion and Jason let him become praetor, just wow, perfection, perfection, so good, perfect. And him getting the blessing of Mars, just yes. Frank was so stunning in this book. And when he and Nico kind of had that mini geek out over mythomagic, perfect. Let's talk about Leo, because I love Leo so hard. He's always been one of my favorite characters since the beginning. He's just one firecracker of mischief and hilarity. I've always had a soft spot for him because he's like the odd man out, and Nemesis even told him that he's like the 7th wheel, and no matter what he does, he always seems to be the one that's kind of separated from the group. So of course, when he met Calypso, I wanted to die. It was so perfect. Apparently the Leo and Calypso ship has been sailing around Tumblr for the past few months, but I never even imagined it. But I ship it. I ship it so hard. Calypso herself is so different in this book than in the Battle of the Labyrinth. She's a lot more modern and kind of rude, and she, you know, says things that she probably never would have said to Percy, but I feel like that's the point. I kind of hated her for cursing Annabeth, but I do understand where she's coming from. Calypso and Leo bounce off of each other so well. I loved how they didn't like each other in the beginning, and then when the raft came and I was like, oh, Calypso, I got you, girl. Just everything about that ship is so perfect. Oh my goodness, when Leo thought about that line from the prophecy and he swore on the river Styx anyway that he would come back for her, just, oh, Leo, wow. I hope he and Calypso have a happily ever after, and I don't want any of this oath to keep with the final breath business. What I really liked as well is that in the previous books, all the other characters are like, Leo's the annoying one, or he's too hyper as usual, but then in this book, after he's depressed, after his departure from Ogygia, everyone notices that he's kind of dampening the mood, and they realize how necessary it is for Leo to have his humor and his lightheartedness, and that realization is just perfect. I'm using the word perfect a lot. I think that word describes this book perfectly. There it is again. Piper is actually one of my favorites, so I was really sad because she didn't get spotlighted really in this book. Apparently a lot of people dislike her, but I have always loved her. I wanted more of her, but what we did see I loved. When she was battling Keone, is that how you say it? I don't know. It was fantastic. She is such an awesome person. I love how she's getting more comfortable with herself and her lineage from Aphrodite. I adore her. I love Piper. I want more Piper. Jason Grace won my heart in this book. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, but his compassion for Nico was just mind-blowingly awesome. I also love how he's breaking out of that perfect son of Jupiter mold. Jason is such a cool dude, and when he gave Percy a bear hug at the end of this book, I practically died. I love their bromance. The way Jason was so accepting of Nico's confession, and how Jason realizes that he wants to be more like Camp Half-Blood, it was a fantastic development in his character. What bothers me is that Jason seems to be like the equivalent of Percy but in Roman form, but so far I feel like I haven't seen anything particularly spectacular from him, but maybe that'll change in the Blood of Olympus. Okay, now let's talk about what I'm sure everyone is dying to talk about. Nico D'Angelo. The most upsetting thing about this is that this is what was spoiled for me. I was on Tumblr on a seemingly innocent day when suddenly the scene with Cupid was translated from the Portuguese league and I couldn't unread it. Now I'm about to say something that might offend or anger readers, but bear with me. I'm not upset with Nico being gay. I think that's a really awesome choice for Rick Riordan to do. I like how he's incorporating more diversity in his characters, especially to his target audience, showing these children that it is okay to be gay and that we should all accept it. But to me, throughout this whole book, Nico seemed really out of character. Nico in House of Hades is so different from Nico in all the other books. I mean, yes, his confession touched me so hard. I cried publicly in my world history class when I read that scene. It was amazingly beautiful, but it was also really unexpected and I felt like it was forced. I honestly can't recall any foreshadowing in the previous books of Nico's homosexuality, but probably that's just me. Let me say this again, just to clarify, I am not upset about Nico being gay. I think having a gay character is a really important thing. I just wasn't expecting it from Nico D'Angelo out of all characters. Nevertheless, I love Nico. I feel for him. He has so much inner turmoil and inner conflict and practically no one to confide in, and that just breaks my heart. The House of Hades was literally so perfect. Sure, Hazel's final battle was kind of dull, but that's okay, and I thought the ending, the picnic ending, was kind of ridiculous. But I feel like a picnic was better than a possible cliffhanger. Percy's last line to the stars when he says, "Bob says hello," made me want to bawl because it was so perfect and flawless. Everything was beautiful. Some last things to mention. Coach Hedge being a husband and a future father was fantastic. Oh my goodness, Coach Hedge, yes, I love you. And I loved how Frank kind of took on the responsibility of making sure Coach Hedge would get back to his wife and his future child. Also, Riptide being used as a real pen for the first time. That was so bomb. The sibling relationship between Hazel and Nico, so lovely. And oh my goodness, Reina is such an awesome character, and I love how we got to see her full name. Also, Rachel and Grover, I missed them so much, especially Grover. And as usual, Octavian can go die in a hole. There were so many things I wanted to mention because there were so many things going on in this book. I hope I hit them all. I probably didn't. Probably forgot a lot of important and key points actually, so I might have to make a part 2, who knows. But yeah, The House of Hades blew my mind and I feel like a physical ache in my bones because I know I have to wait another year for the Blood of Olympus. I have such a book hangover right now. Goodbye friends, I'm gone.